Hey, everybody. Welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, we talk with people who are going to help our small and medium-sized nonprofits do good better. And sometimes, nay, most of the time, the people who can help us do good better are actually executive directors and run small and medium-sized nonprofits. And that's what we got for you today. I am super ecstatic to introduce you to my guest today, Chrystal Smith. She's the founder and CEO of Foster Village of Austin, Texas. Chrystal, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Super excited to have you here. As people are kind of scrolling through iTunes and Spotify and YouTube, and they're coming across our little video and said Foster Village of Austin, Texas, I find this intriguing, but I don't know anything. So I would like you to give a 5,000-foot view on who you are, what you do, and why we're talking today.
Absolutely. So Foster Village started as a grassroots passion project based on our family's personal experience as foster parents and just seeing those gaps firsthand in terms of our child welfare system and the many ways that we tend to fall short in caring for kids and families who are in the system. And so we banded together with other foster parents who are in the same boat, and it has since grown into a nationwide network of foster village affiliates where each of our locations, we equip families with basic necessities when they're placed with kids. Generally, they're getting just a couple hours notice. And so we provide clothing, car seats, beds, all those basic necessities. And we connect them with ongoing holistic support through support gatherings and trainings and other services. And we really advocate for community engagement beyond the system and bridging all of the gaps through community support rather than trying to fix a system that will always be broken. You know, it's necessary, but ultimately we believe that community is the solution.
So first of all, and I have a couple of neighbors who do foster work, and they're like the most amazing humans ever, because it takes a certain, I think, mental preparation and just sort of confidence as a parent and as a community member. And so it's an amazing thing. So appreciate what you do out of the gate. What sort of community engagement pieces do you have? Because I think the support network that individual families like this have is so critical. And I love what you said, like, hey, the system will always be broken, but we can fix some of the pieces that are going to help support those who are engaged within this broken system. What does that look like? And how does Foster Village help with that?
Yes. Well, and our end goal, which is, always that unreachable place that we're headed toward, is we ultimately want to help break generational cycles of adversity and the reason why kids come into foster care in the first place. So working ourselves out of a job looks like families who have the tools needed to stay together and to raise their children in healthy, stable, safe environments. And so ultimately, whether that looks like equipping foster families with that toward the goal of permanency in their home, or matching them up with the biological parents who we want to set them up for success if they're going to be reunified with their kids. And we want kids out of temporary placements. We want them to have stable, safe, loving permanency. So the community plays a huge role in that, just through being that line of support, because you look at the commonality of why kids end up in foster care, and it's always lack of support. There's no healthy, safe folks for these families to turn to in a time of crisis. So that's where the community, I believe, is critical.
And when you're working in an environment like this, I imagine that at times when you think it's overwhelming and overly frustrating, and this has got to stop at some point, it's got to be a little bit of a draining, there's probably one story that you retell yourself over and over of success to remind yourself this is exactly what we do and why we do what we do. Do you have one that you just remind yourself of, or an experience that you go, I need to remind myself today because I need to push through?
Yes. And I mean, there's so many. I have like the Rolodex of those stories that have to be reminded of on a daily basis. One that stands out that shows kind of the full journey of, we had a foster family who I believe they've fostered over 12 kids at this point, but had a sibling group that was placed in their home. And so we were able to set them up with all the necessities when they were placed. They come to our resource center and get all of those necessities and then come for ongoing support. And about a year into the case, as we're walking alongside them through that relational wraparound support, the foster mom says, their mom is doing pretty well, but she just needs help. She doesn't have any support network in place. And so we don't know what to do. So I'm like, let's connect with her as well. Let's get her plugged in with our services. And so we were able to come alongside her, had folks in the community who donated a car so that she had a vehicle to transport her 4 kids, and got her plugged in with local businesses for a job and housing and all of these pieces that came together and just total community wraparound. And so she's had her kids home for 2 years now, and they're thriving. So that being, that scenario of like, this cycle, we hope and pray has now been broken, and this family is on their way to a different legacy and better outcomes.
It's so fantastic. Is there a consistent struggle that you have? Is there a consistent challenge that you find yourself facing day in and day out? And how do you overcome those either massive ones or the small ones that just keep popping up?
Yeah, well, and I would say, within the last couple of years, this is probably us collectively as as humans, is just the constant need to pivot. Everything's changing from one week to the next, one day to the next, and so the strategic planning has become more of a challenge because we just don't know how things are going to look from one day to the next. And so I would say that needing to be flexible and plan for a variety of different outcomes has definitely been a challenge the last couple of years.
It is, if an organization who sort of relates to always having to pivot and maybe works in a field where there is a lot of emotion that goes into serving. You've been doing this, for how many years?
Going on 6.
6. So that's a long time tenured in the nonprofit world already. But for somebody getting into this, and maybe somebody who is experiencing a nonprofit executive director or being a founder for the first time and coming into their own, is there a piece of advice that you would give as somebody who has founded and then currently runs a nonprofit organization to give a tip or a trick to somebody else who may be in that certain situation that you might have been in? Give us some hope and give us some inspiration on how we can pass it along to that next generation who might be listening right now.
Yes. Something that comes to mind that as I mentioned, we train other locations on how to replicate our model in their communities. And one sort of nugget that I always relay to them is when you're feeling, I think there's the tendency to focus so much on our processes and operations and structures and all of these things that are really good and important in the nonprofit world, but it's easy to lose sight of those we set out to serve in the first place and what the heart of the mission is. And I think that being the place where we can always go back and get that energy that we need, that passion, kind of reconnect with that. So whenever I am feeling that sort of drift or disconnect of like, gosh, this is exhausting or I'm feeling burnout, just going back to those that we serve and checking in with them and like, hey, what are y'all struggling with right now? What are some things that we're doing that's helpful? What are some things we could do better? And that has been really just a helpful practice in our organization.
I think some of the founders in the nonprofit world have this entrepreneurial sort of spirit to them. And that always leads to shiny object syndrome. And that always leads to stretching a little bit thin. And there is no better piece of advice of going back to what you did originally, why you started, why you doing what you do. And I love the idea too of asking really good questions to other people and getting their perspective to get you back in focus as well. That's a brilliant piece of advice. And now that we've experienced the brilliant piece of advice and the inspiration to galore, I'm sure there's a bunch of people who want to get a hold of you and give you boatloads of money, but they don't know how to do that too. How on earth do people connect with you? Is there a way that they can donate? And what are you looking for?
Yes. So check out our website, fostervillage.org. It also will go from fostervillageaustin.org. That lists all of our locations. So finding one near you, we're definitely in the works of adding more nationwide. And folks can contact me directly at Chrystal, CHRYSTAL, at fostervillageaustin.org.
As you're wrapping up listening to this podcast, I encourage you, go to the show notes. We've linked everything there, and go click on that. And by the way, while you're clicking, these kind of 5-star guests probably deserve a 5-star review. So get to iTunes and sign up, listen, get a review going, because this is the type of thing that we do here on the official Do Good Better podcast. Chrystal. And then, of course, after that, go and give a bunch of money and sign up and follow everything Foster Village is doing. More importantly, though, thank you so much for what you do. This is, experiencing this in my own neighborhood with my own friends and family who do just a remarkable job providing a support system and getting to the root cause of maybe stopping the cycle.
Yes.
Is such an important and wonderful and important thing. So thank you for what you do. Also, thank you for being a guest here on the official Do Good Better podcast. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Well, likewise. Thank you so much for having me, and love what y'all are doing.
Absolutely. Talk to you next time.
All right.